The Earth's climate is changing. This change is primarily driven by human activities. These activities release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, trapping heat and warming the planet. The consequences are already being felt worldwide. From rising sea levels to more extreme weather events, the situation is dire and demands urgent action. The Paris Agreement, adopted in 2015, provides a global framework for tackling climate change. It aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Ideally, warming should be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius. To achieve these ambitious goals, a significant shift in global financial flows is required. We must transition from a high-carbon to a low-carbon economy. This transition necessitates substantial investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, sustainable transport, and climate adaptation measures. The scale of the challenge is immense. Trillions of dollars are needed to finance climate action globally. Developed countries have committed to mobilizing $100 billion per year by 2020 to support developing countries in their climate efforts. However, this target has not yet been met, and the need for climate finance continues to grow. Bridging the climate finance gap is essential for a sustainable future. We must act decisively and collectively to secure the necessary financial resources. Failure to do so will have catastrophic consequences for our planet and future generations. It is our shared responsibility to address this global challenge and ensure a healthy and habitable planet for all. Addressing the climate crisis requires a massive increase in climate finance. The current levels of investment are simply insufficient to meet the scale of the challenge. To achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, we need to significantly scale up financial flows towards climate-resilient and low-carbon development pathways. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, achieving the 1.5 degrees Celsius target requires global net zero carbon dioxide emissions by mid-century. This requires annual investments in the energy system alone to reach $2.4 trillion by 2035. These investments need to be directed towards renewable energy sources, energy efficiency measures, and grid modernization. While the initial costs of transitioning to a low-carbon economy may seem daunting, the long-term benefits far outweigh the costs of inaction. Investing in climate action creates new economic opportunities, generates green jobs, improves public health, and enhances resilience to climate impacts. Furthermore, delaying action will only lead to more severe climate impacts, resulting in even greater economic and social costs in the future. Governments, businesses, and financial institutions all have a crucial role to play in mobilizing climate finance. Governments need to implement policies that create an enabling environment for private sector investment in climate action. This includes putting a price on carbon, phasing out fossil fuel subsidies, and providing incentives for renewable energy and energy efficiency. Businesses need to integrate climate considerations into their investment decisions and actively seek opportunities in the growing green economy. Financial institutions need to align their portfolios with the Paris Agreement goals and scale up their investments in climate-friendly projects. And while the need for increased climate finance is universal, it is particularly acute for developing countries and vulnerable communities. These communities are often on the front lines of climate change, facing the most severe impacts despite having contributed the least to the problem. They often lack the financial resources and capacity to adapt to a changing climate and transition to low-carbon development pathways. For example, small island developing states are particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels and extreme weather events. These nations often rely heavily on tourism and fisheries, sectors that are highly susceptible to climate change. Without adequate climate finance, these countries face an existential threat. Similarly, many developing countries in Africa and Asia are facing increasing droughts, floods, and heat waves, which are impacting agricultural yields and exacerbating food insecurity. Climate change is also increasing the spread of vector-borne diseases, posing significant risks to public health in these regions. Ensuring equitable access to climate finance for vulnerable communities is not only a matter of justice, but also a matter of effectiveness in tackling climate change globally. By supporting these communities in building resilience and transitioning to low-carbon development, we can reduce their vulnerability to climate impacts and enable them to contribute to global climate action. Transparency and accountability are essential for building trust and ensuring the effectiveness of climate finance. Clear and consistent reporting on climate finance flows is crucial for tracking progress, identifying gaps, and holding stakeholders accountable for their commitments. It also allows for learning and improvement in how climate finance is mobilized, delivered, and used. The current landscape of climate finance is characterized by a lack of harmonized definitions, methodologies, and reporting frameworks. This makes it difficult to track progress, compare commitments, and assess the impact of climate finance. Moreover, there is a need for greater transparency on how climate finance is being allocated geographically and thematically, ensuring that it is reaching the most vulnerable communities and addressing the most pressing climate challenges. Strengthening transparency and accountability in climate finance requires collaborative efforts from all stakeholders. Developed countries need to improve the quality and consistency of their climate finance reporting using common methodologies and definitions. Developing countries need to strengthen their national systems for tracking and reporting on climate finance flows. Multilateral development banks and climate funds play a vital role in enhancing transparency by providing accessible and detailed information on their climate finance portfolios. Civil society organizations and local communities have an important role in holding stakeholders accountable and advocating for greater transparency and accountability in climate finance.